In a world where the lines between freedom and control are constantly being tested, one man stands at the crossroads of history, defending the very essence of free speech against powerful forces. Today, we dive into a gripping exploration of how Elon Musk is leading a modern-day battle for liberty, as the Bible's timeless teachings on tyranny and justice come to life in the face of unprecedented challenges. Join us as we uncover the spiritual and moral stakes of this critical fight for the future of our freedoms. Biblical prophecy about dictators and oppressive rulers. The Bible is a book filled with wisdom, guidance, and prophecies that apply to both the past and the present. One of the recurring themes in Scripture is the existence of tyrannical rulers, those who use their power to oppress and control the people. Throughout history, we have seen many examples of such leaders who have caused suffering and hardship for their subjects. The Bible warns us about these kinds of rulers, and it provides us with insights on how to recognize and respond to them. In the book of Daniel, there is a vivid prophecy about a series of kingdoms that would rise and fall, each one more powerful and oppressive than the last. Daniel 7 verses 23 to 25 describes a kingdom that will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. This prophecy is often interpreted as a warning about the dangers of unchecked power and the rise of dictatorial regimes that seek to dominate and oppress others. It serves as a reminder that, while human rulers may have great authority, they are ultimately accountable to God. Another passage that speaks to the issue of oppressive rulers is found in Psalm 2. This psalm portrays the rulers of the earth as conspiring against the Lord and His anointed one, seeking to break free from divine authority. However, the psalm also emphasizes that God is sovereign over all nations and that He will judge those who misuse their power. Psalm 2 verses 4 to 5 says, "The one enthroned in heaven laughs, the Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in His anger and terrifies them in His wrath." This passage assures us that no matter how powerful a ruler may seem, they are not beyond God's reach. The Bible also provides examples of how God's people should respond to oppressive rulers. In the book of Exodus, we see the story of Moses, who was called by God to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, was a tyrant who refused to let the people go, even after witnessing the mighty acts of God. Despite Pharaoh's resistance, Moses remained steadfast in his mission, trusting in God's power to deliver His people. This story teaches us the importance of standing firm in our faith and trusting that God will ultimately bring justice. In the New Testament, we find further warnings about the rise of oppressive rulers, particularly in the context of the end times. In Revelation 13 verse 7, a beast is described as having authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. This beast is often interpreted as a symbol of a future dictator or oppressive regime that will seek to control the world. The passage serves as a cautionary tale, reminding believers to be vigilant and to resist the lure of authoritarianism. The Bible also speaks to the internal character of oppressive rulers. Proverbs 29 verse 2 says, "When the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan." This proverb highlights the impact that a ruler's character can have on the well-being of the nation. When a ruler is just and righteous, the people flourish. But when a ruler is wicked, the nation suffers. This verse encourages us to seek out leaders who embody justice, integrity, and compassion. Oppressive rulers are often characterized by their desire to control every aspect of life, including the freedom of speech and expression. In modern times, we see examples of this in various parts of the world where governments attempt to silence dissenting voices and restrict the flow of information. The Bible warns against such behavior, emphasizing the importance of truth and freedom. In John 8, verse 32, Jesus says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." This verse underscores the power of truth in overcoming oppression and achieving true freedom. The role of the church and believers in the face of tyranny is also addressed in the Bible. In Acts 5, verse 29, Peter and the other apostles, when commanded to stop preaching about Jesus, boldly declare, "We must obey God rather than human beings." This statement reflects the conviction that, while we are to respect earthly authorities, our ultimate allegiance is to God. When human laws conflict with God's commands, believers are called to stand firm in their faith, even in the face of persecution. Throughout the Bible, there is a recurring theme of hope and deliverance. Even in the darkest times, when oppressive rulers seem to have the upper hand, God promises to deliver his people. In Isaiah 9, verses 6 to 7, a prophecy is given about the coming of a righteous ruler, the Messiah, who will establish a kingdom of justice and peace. "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." This prophecy offers hope that, no matter how dire the situation, God has a plan for the ultimate triumph of good over evil. In conclusion, the Bible provides us with a comprehensive understanding of the dangers of oppressive rulers and the hope that comes from trusting in God's sovereignty. It warns us to be vigilant, to stand firm in our faith, and to seek justice in the face of tyranny. As we navigate the complexities of our modern world, these biblical principles offer guidance and reassurance that God's justice will prevail. If this message resonates with you, hit that like button and share to spread the truth. The role of saviors in the scriptures. The Bible is filled with stories of individuals who rose to defend the oppressed and bring justice to the downtrodden. These saviors, guided by their faith and commitment to God's will, often faced overwhelming odds, yet they persevered in their missions. Their stories offer powerful lessons for us today, reminding us that even in the face of tyranny, there is always hope, and those who stand for truth and justice will ultimately prevail. One of the most well-known saviors in the Bible is Moses, who led the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. The story of Moses begins with his miraculous survival as a baby, saved from Pharaoh's decree to kill all Hebrew male infants. As he grew, Moses became deeply aware of the suffering of his people. In Exodus 3, verses 7 to 8, God says to Moses, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians." Moses was chosen by God to be the instrument of that rescue, and through his leadership, the Israelites were delivered from bondage. Another example of a biblical savior is Esther, a Jewish queen who risked her life to save her people from genocide. The story, found in the book of Esther, highlights how Esther's courage and wisdom enabled her to influence the king and prevent the massacre of the Jewish people. In Esther 4, verse 14, her cousin Mordecai challenges her with these words, "And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" This verse underscores the belief that individuals are placed in specific situations by divine providence to fulfill a greater purpose. The New Testament also introduces us to saviors who stood against injustice. Jesus Christ himself is the ultimate example, as he came to save humanity from sin and death. Throughout his ministry, Jesus consistently stood up for the marginalized and oppressed, challenging the religious and political authorities of his time. In Luke 4, verses 18 to 19, Jesus declares his mission, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." His life and teachings continue to inspire countless others to fight for justice and freedom. The apostles, following in the footsteps of Jesus, also took on the role of saviors in their communities. They spread the message of the gospel and worked tirelessly to help those in need, often facing persecution and imprisonment. The Apostle Paul, in particular, is known for his unwavering commitment to spreading the message of Christ despite numerous hardships. In 2 Timothy 4 verses 7 to 8, Paul reflects on his life's work, saying, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day." Paul's example shows us the importance of perseverance in the face of adversity. In the book of Judges, we see a series of leaders who were raised up by God to deliver Israel from its enemies. These judges, like Gideon, Deborah, and Samson, were ordinary people called to do extraordinary things. Each of them faced seemingly insurmountable challenges, yet with God's guidance, they were able to achieve victory and bring peace to their land. Judges 2 verse 16 sums up their role. "Then the Lord raised up judges, who saved them out of the hands of these raiders." Their stories remind us that God often uses unlikely individuals to fulfill his purposes. The prophets of the Old Testament also played a crucial role as saviors. They were called to speak truth to power, often at great personal risk. Prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Amos denounced the injustices of their time and called the people and their leaders to repentance. In Isaiah 1 verse 17, the prophet urges, "Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow." The prophet's unwavering commitment to justice and righteousness serves as a powerful example for believers today. In times of great crisis, God often raises up individuals who are willing to stand against tyranny and oppression. These saviors are not always the most powerful or influential in worldly terms, but they are chosen because of their faith and willingness to serve. Their stories are a reminder that true leadership is rooted in humility, compassion, and a commitment to justice. Elon Musk, in many ways, can be seen as a modern-day savior who is fighting for freedom in the digital age. His efforts to protect free speech and resist censorship echo the biblical call to stand up for the oppressed. Just as the saviors of the Bible were called to their missions, Musk appears to be driven by a sense of purpose and responsibility to defend the rights of individuals against authoritarian control. The role of saviors in the scriptures is not just a historical concept. It is a call to action for believers today. We are all called to be saviors in our own right, standing up for what is just and true and defending those who cannot defend themselves. The Bible encourages us to be bold in our faith, to trust in God's guidance, and to act with courage and conviction in the face of injustice. In conclusion, the Bible presents us with numerous examples of saviors who were called to deliver their people from oppression. These stories inspire us to recognize our own potential to make a difference in the world. As we reflect on the lives of these biblical figures, we are reminded that God's plan often involves using ordinary people to achieve extraordinary things. Don't miss out. Subscribe now and stay informed about the fight for freedom. Elon Musk as a defender of freedom. In the modern world, the concept of freedom has become increasingly complex, particularly in the digital age. The internet, once heralded as a space for free expression and the exchange of ideas, has become a battleground where the forces of control and censorship often clash with those advocating for open discourse. One of the most prominent figures in this struggle is Elon Musk, who has positioned himself as a staunch defender of free speech, particularly in the context of recent events in Brazil. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, and the owner of Twitter, now X, has long been an advocate for freedom of expression. His acquisition of Twitter in 2022 was seen by many as a bold move to protect the platform from what he perceived as increasing censorship. Musk has been vocal about his belief that social media should be a space where people can express their opinions without fear of suppression, even if those opinions are controversial or unpopular. Recently, Musk's commitment to free speech has been put to the test in Brazil, where the Supreme Court ordered the blocking of Twitter X. This decision was part of a broader effort by the court to control the spread of information and limit the influence of social media on public discourse. The move sparked widespread debate about the role of the judiciary in regulating speech and the implications for freedom in a democratic society. In response to the court's decision, Musk has taken a firm stance against what he sees as an overreach of authority. He has argued that the blocking of Twitter X is a direct attack on the fundamental right to free expression and has vowed to fight back against such measures. Musk's actions echo the biblical principle found in Galatians 5 verse 1, which states, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm, then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." Just as the Bible calls believers to stand firm in their faith, Musk is standing firm in his belief that freedom of speech is a right worth defending. Musk's defense of freedom is not just about protecting the rights of individuals. It is also about challenging the power structures that seek to control information. In the Bible, we see numerous examples of individuals who stood up against oppressive rulers and authorities. In Acts 5 verse 29, when the apostles were ordered by the authorities to stop preaching about Jesus, Peter boldly declared, "We must obey God rather than human beings." This sentiment resonates with Musk's current battle, as he resists the directives of the Brazilian Supreme Court in favor of what he believes is a higher principle, freedom. The situation in Brazil also highlights the tension between governmental power and individual rights, a theme that is prevalent throughout the Bible. In Daniel 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow down to King Nebuchadnezzar's golden image, even under the threat of death. Their defiance was not just an act of rebellion, but a statement of their unwavering commitment to their beliefs. Similarly, Musk's resistance to the Supreme Court's order can be seen as a stand for the principle that no authority should have the power to silence the voice of the people. Elon Musk's actions also reflect the biblical call to protect the oppressed and defend those who cannot defend themselves. In Proverbs 31 verses 8 to 9, it says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy." By opposing the blocking of Twitter X in Brazil, Musk is speaking up for the millions of users who rely on the platform to express their opinions, share information, and connect with others. He is defending their right to free speech, even when it is under threat from powerful institutions. Moreover, Musk's defense of freedom aligns with the broader biblical narrative of justice and righteousness. Throughout the scriptures, God calls his people to pursue justice and to stand against oppression. In Micah 6 verse 8, it is written, "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God." Musk's actions can be seen as part of this broader mandate to act justly and to challenge injustices wherever they are found. The challenges faced by Elon Musk in his efforts to protect free speech also serve as a reminder of the importance of vigilance in the face of creeping authoritarianism. The Bible warns against the dangers of complacency and encourages believers to be watchful and to stand firm in their convictions. In 1 Peter 5, verse 8, it says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour." This verse serves as a caution to remain vigilant in defending the freedoms that are essential to a just and equitable society. In conclusion, Elon Musk's fight for freedom in Brazil is a modern-day reflection of the biblical principles of justice, righteousness, and the defense of the oppressed. His actions serve as a powerful reminder that the fight for freedom is ongoing and that it requires courage, conviction, and a willingness to stand up against powerful forces. Just as the heroes of the Bible stood firm in their faith and fought for what was right, so too does Musk stand firm in his belief that freedom of speech is a fundamental right that must be protected. Engage with us. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on this critical issue. Modern tyranny and the Supreme Court of Brazil. In the modern world, the concept of tyranny has evolved from the overt dictatorships of the past to more subtle forms of control and suppression. One of the most concerning examples of this modern tyranny is the recent actions taken by the Supreme Court of Brazil, particularly its decision to block Twitter, X, in an effort to control the flow of information. This move has sparked significant controversy and raised serious concerns about the erosion of freedom of speech and the increasing power of judicial institutions. The Bible provides us with numerous warnings about the dangers of tyranny and the abuse of power. In Revelation 13, verse 7, a symbolic beast is described as having authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. This passage is often interpreted as a depiction of an oppressive regime or ruler who seeks to control every aspect of life, including the thoughts and beliefs of the people. The actions of the Supreme Court of Brazil, in attempting to regulate and restrict free expression, can be seen as a modern parallel to this biblical warning. The decision to block Twitter X in Brazil represents a clear example of how modern institutions can wield power in ways that infringe upon fundamental rights. While the court may justify its actions as necessary to maintain public order or protect certain interests, the result is the suppression of dissenting voices and the restriction of free discourse. This mirrors the warnings found in the Bible about the dangers of centralized power and the potential for it to be used unjustly. In Proverbs 29, verse 2, it is written, "When the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan." This verse highlights the impact that leadership and governance have on the well-being of a society. When power is used for good, it leads to flourishing and prosperity. But when it is used oppressively, it leads to suffering and discontent. The actions of the Supreme Court of Brazil have led to widespread concern and disillusionment, as many see these measures as a step toward greater authoritarianism. The Bible also emphasizes the importance of justice and the role of leaders in upholding it. In Isaiah 10, verses 1 to 2, we read, "Woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees, to deprive the poor of their rights and withhold justice from the oppressed." This passage serves as a stark reminder that those in positions of power have a responsibility to govern justly and to protect the rights of all individuals. The Supreme Court's decision to block Twitter, X, raises questions about whether justice is truly being served, or if these actions are a form of modern tyranny. One of the most concerning aspects of this situation is the precedent it sets for the future. If the Supreme Court of Brazil can unilaterally decide to block a major social media platform, what other actions might it take to control or limit free expression? The Bible warns us to be vigilant and to guard against the gradual erosion of our freedoms. In Matthew 24, verse 4, Jesus cautions his followers, saying, "Watch out that no one deceives you." This warning is particularly relevant in the context of modern governance, where the slow encroachment of power can lead to the loss of fundamental rights. The blocking of Twitter X by the Supreme Court also reflects a broader trend of increasing judicial power and the potential for it to be used in ways that suppress individual freedoms. In the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon reflects on the misuse of power, saying in Ecclesiastes 8 verse 9, "All this I saw, as I applied my mind to everything done under the sun. There is a time when a man lords it over others to his own hurt." This observation highlights the self-destructive nature of tyranny, where the exercise of power for control ultimately leads to harm and division. The response to these actions, both within Brazil and internationally, has been one of concern and resistance. Many see the blocking of Twitter X as a direct attack on the principles of democracy and freedom of speech. In Acts 5 verse 29, the apostles, when commanded to stop preaching about Jesus, respond with courage, saying, "We must obey God rather than human beings." This declaration of allegiance to a higher moral authority over human institutions resonates with those who believe that the right to free expression is a God-given right that should not be infringed upon by any earthly power. The situation in Brazil also serves as a reminder of the importance of standing up against injustice, even when it comes from the highest levels of government. The Bible is filled with examples of individuals who resisted oppressive rulers and fought for what was right, even at great personal cost. In Exodus 1 verse 17, the Hebrew midwives defied Pharaoh's orders to kill all male Hebrew infants, choosing instead to preserve life and protect the innocent. Their courage and conviction are a powerful example for us today, as we face our own challenges in standing up against modern forms of tyranny. Finally, the blocking of Twitter X by the Supreme Court of Brazil raises important questions about the balance between security and freedom. While governments have a responsibility to protect their citizens, this duty must be balanced with the need to preserve individual liberties. The Bible teaches that true security comes from righteousness and justice, not from the suppression of freedoms. In Psalm 85 verse 10, it is written, "Love and faithfulness meet together. Righteousness and peace kiss each other." This verse reminds us that peace and security are the result of justice and integrity, not control and coercion. In conclusion, the actions of the Supreme Court of Brazil in blocking Twitter X can be seen as a form of modern tyranny that echoes the warnings of the Bible about the dangers of oppressive rulers. As we reflect on these events, we are reminded of the importance of vigilance, justice, and the protection of fundamental freedoms. The Bible calls us to stand firm in our convictions and to resist the encroachment of tyranny in all its forms, trusting that God's justice will ultimately prevail. The fight for freedom as a divine mission. The fight for freedom has been a central theme throughout human history, and the Bible presents it not just as a human struggle, but as a divine mission. The scriptures repeatedly emphasize that freedom is a gift from God, and that defending it is a righteous cause. This perspective transforms the battle for freedom from a mere political or social issue into a spiritual one, where the forces of good are pitted against the forces of oppression and control. In Galatians 5 verse 1, the Apostle Paul writes, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm, then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." This verse encapsulates the Christian belief that freedom is a fundamental right given by God, and that it is our responsibility to protect and maintain it. The concept of freedom in this context is not just physical freedom, but also spiritual and moral freedom. The ability to live according to God's will without being oppressed by unjust human authorities. Elon Musk's recent actions in defending free speech, particularly in the face of attempts by the Supreme Court of Brazil to block Twitter X, can be seen as part of this divine mission to protect freedom. Musk's stance is not just about preserving the right to express opinions freely, but also about resisting the broader trend of increasing control by powerful institutions. His efforts align with the biblical call to stand firm in the face of oppression and to defend the rights that God has bestowed upon humanity. The Bible provides numerous examples of individuals who were called by God to lead the fight for freedom. One of the most prominent figures is Moses, who was chosen to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. In Exodus 3 verses 7 to 8, God says to Moses, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians." Moses' mission was not just a political or social endeavor. It was a divine mandate to free God's people from bondage. Similarly, the fight for freedom in the modern era can be seen as a continuation of this divine mandate. Those who stand up against tyranny and oppression are following in the footsteps of biblical figures like Moses, carrying out God's will by defending the oppressed and ensuring that the freedom he has given is not taken away. This perspective adds a spiritual dimension to the fight for freedom, framing it as a battle between good and evil, where the forces of light are pitted against the forces of darkness. In the New Testament, Jesus Christ himself is presented as the ultimate liberator, who came to set humanity free from sin and death. In Luke 4 verses 18 to 19, Jesus declares his mission, saying, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Jesus' ministry was focused on bringing freedom in its fullest sense, spiritual, physical, and moral, to all people. Elon Musk's commitment to defending free speech can be seen as a reflection of this Christ-like mission to bring freedom. By resisting efforts to control and suppress information, Musk is standing up for the rights of individuals to express themselves freely, which is a fundamental aspect of the freedom that Christ came to proclaim. In this sense, Musk's actions are not just a defense of a social or political right, but part of a larger spiritual battle to protect the freedoms that God has given to humanity. The Bible also teaches that the fight for freedom is not always easy, and that those who engage in it may face significant opposition. In Ephesians 6 verse 12, Paul writes, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." This verse highlights the spiritual nature of the struggle for freedom, emphasizing that it is often a battle against powerful forces that seek to control and oppress. In the face of such opposition, the Bible calls believers to stand firm in their convictions and to trust in God's power to bring about justice. In Psalm 37 verses 39 to 40, it says, "The salvation of the righteous comes from the Lord. He is their stronghold in time of trouble. The Lord helps them and delivers them. He delivers them from the wicked and saves them, because they take refuge in him." This assurance gives strength to those who fight for freedom, reminding them that God is with them in their struggle and that he will ultimately bring about victory. Elon Musk's determination to protect free speech, even in the face of significant challenges, mirrors this biblical call to stand firm in the face of adversity. His actions serve as a reminder that the fight for freedom is ongoing and requires courage, perseverance, and a deep commitment to the principles of justice and righteousness. Musk's efforts can be seen as part of a larger divine mission to protect the freedoms that God has given to humanity and to resist the forces that seek to take them away. In conclusion, the fight for freedom is not just a political or social issue. It is a divine mission that has been entrusted to all of us. The Bible teaches that freedom is a gift from God, and that it is our responsibility to protect and defend it. Elon Musk's actions in defending free speech, particularly in the face of attempts by the Supreme Court of Brazil to suppress it, can be seen as part of this divine mission. As we reflect on these events, we are reminded that the fight for freedom is a righteous cause, and that God is with us in this struggle. Final reflection and call to action. As we conclude our exploration of the biblical perspective on tyranny, freedom, and the role of saviors, it's important to reflect on how these ancient teachings apply to our modern world. The Bible provides us with timeless principles that guide our understanding of justice, leadership, and the importance of standing up for what is right. In today's context, these lessons are more relevant than ever, especially as we witness the ongoing struggle between those who seek to control and those who fight to preserve freedom. The stories and teachings from the Bible are not just historical accounts. They're living lessons that speak to us today. They remind us that the fight for freedom is a continuous battle, one that requires courage, conviction, and faith. Whether it's the Israelites' escape from Egypt, the defiance of the apostles in the face of persecution, or the teachings of Jesus about liberation and justice, the Bible consistently calls us to stand against oppression and to champion the cause of the oppressed. In our modern world, figures like Elon Musk have taken on the mantle of defending freedom, particularly in the digital realm. His efforts to protect free speech in the face of judicial overreach reflect the biblical call to resist tyranny and to uphold the rights that God has granted to all people. Musk's actions remind us that the fight for freedom is not just a historical issue, but a present-day challenge that requires our active participation. The blocking of Twitter, X, by the Supreme Court of Brazil serves as a stark reminder of the delicate balance between security and freedom. While governments and institutions have a role to play in maintaining order, this should never come at the cost of individual liberties. The Bible teaches us that true peace and security are achieved through justice and righteousness, not through control and suppression. As believers, we are called to be vigilant in protecting these freedoms and to speak out against any actions that threaten them. In Matthew 5 verses 14 to 16, Jesus tells his followers, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." This passage encourages us to be a beacon of hope and truth in a world that often seeks to suppress it. Our actions, guided by our faith and commitment to justice, can inspire others and bring about positive change. As we reflect on these teachings, it becomes clear that we all have a role to play in the fight for freedom. Whether through our words, our actions, or our prayers, we can contribute to the cause of justice and help protect the rights of those who are oppressed. The Bible calls us to be active participants in this struggle, to stand up for what is right, and to trust in God's guidance as we navigate the challenges of our time. In light of recent events, it is important to recognize the power of collective action. Just as the biblical heroes did not fight alone, but were supported by their communities and by God, we too must come together to defend our freedoms. This is not just a fight for one person or one nation. It is a global struggle that affects us all. The Bible's teachings on justice, freedom, and resistance to tyranny provide us with the tools and the inspiration we need to engage in this battle with faith and determination. As we move forward, let us take to heart the lessons from the Scriptures. Let us be vigilant in our defense of freedom, courageous in the face of oppression, and unwavering in our commitment to justice. Let us also remember that ultimately the battle is not ours alone. In 2 Chronicles 20 verse 15, we are reminded, "Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, for the battle is not yours, but God's." This verse reassures us that, While we must do our part, we can trust that God is with us, guiding and supporting us in our efforts. In conclusion, the biblical perspective on tyranny, freedom, and the role of saviors offers us a powerful framework for understanding and responding to the challenges we face today. Whether it is resisting judicial overreach, defending free speech, or standing up for the oppressed, the Bible provides us with the principles and the encouragement we need to take action. As we reflect on the examples of those who have gone before us, let us be inspired to continue the fight for freedom, knowing that we are fulfilling a divine mission and that God is with us every step of the way.